set up to fail. Your fault. No, it's your fault. No, you're doing it wrong. You should play these guys. No, you got me the wrong players. It's so set up to fail. But he, winning a championship in 15 with him, when Steve's in the room, it just makes you feel better about the room. He has the way of doing that. You've all been in here with him so many times, and he has a calming presence. He's got, like I said, decency, a humanity that is rare, and also is a fantastic coach and has led this organization for, I think, 9 years, and will continue to lead this organization. The players, what can you say? They're the reason that I've loved it so much. They're the reason for the success. I got a chance to talk to most of them, most of the key guys. Some people say the GMs shouldn't be, don't get close to the players. You might have to cut them or make it emotional, not pay them or pay them or whatever it is. I kind of push back and go, what is the point of any job if you don't like and build relationships with who do you go to work with? What is the point? Some would say to win. Okay, but who are you doing that with? And what happens after that? And so, Steph Curry is just, you can't even begin to, can't overstate who he is. When I talked to him, it's so rare of somebody of his caliber to be who he is. And I think people know him for what he does, but how lucky is this organization to have him as its leader? And for me to get to watch him be that guy for my whole time here, what a gift to me, and that's one I could never repay, ever. But it's great that he's staying. It's great that he's here. Draymond, we've been through a lot too, from watching games with, the game in the finals, when he got suspended, to all the conversations that no one knows about. Clay, I remember with Larry Island, I met with him at Scott's Seafood over in Oakland, and he could barely talk in his rookie kind of get to know you tryout with us. And now look at him, he's very comfortable in his own skin, and 4 championships later. And Iguodala, who took about 3 years to get to know because he doesn't trust anybody. But what a unique leader. He was a huge part of that first championship, and to watch Looney become who he is, just wonderful people that have graced this organization and will be remembered kind of forever. Durant called me today. He's in Monaco. What he did for us, showing up here, knowing what he would hear about when he made that decision. For him to have that courage. I remember Joe and I were on the phone with him right before he decided, and you could tell he knew what might be coming down his road if he came to us. And for him to do it and to completely deliver on everything that you would want, 2 finals MVPs, 3 in a row championships, taking us to the finals, 3 finals appearances, but 2 championships. What a talent, what a great, if you like basketball, watching him and Steph and these guys play, that was, I do that for free. Sean came to work with us. I don't know if you know Sean, but another, just, these people are so hard to find in sports. They're so rare. Getting to know Andrew, watching him show up, watching him become him. All these guys. Jordan, some of the main guys, and even some of the young guys. It's just, it's what makes it great, makes it hard to leave. Guys that have been here before, Bogut, David Lee, David West, Ozzy Obi, JaVale. It's the journey, with all these players, with all the coaches going through it, with Alvin and Mike and Luke and all the people that went on to be head coaches here. And it's what makes it great. I want to thank Rick Celebrini and his staff for getting all our guys healthy, trying to get me healthy, although that hasn't quite happened yet. I've stolen some of Rick's time. But Rick and Drew and their whole staff, what they do is underappreciated, but hugely important. My group, that's who I really get to do it with. Kirk and Mike, Larry, Kent, Nick, Sean, Babel, Ansi, David, Ryan, Hannah, Nea, Chloe. I get all the people in my position. It looks like I'm doing these things. I know full well that it's us, and it'll always have been us. And we win together, and we lose together, and we succeed, and we fail. Thank you for helping me, doing it with me, challenging me, supporting me, befriending me. That's my team of people. To the fans, oh boy. I grew up a fan of the Warriors. My first, I was like the 10-year-old kid up in the upper Oracle. I was telling the business side who I just met with that I get Warriors tickets for my birthday, and it was months in advance. This is when you actually got the hard tickets. There's no digital tickets, so my brother, my dad, and I would go. And I was born in '75, and that was the last championship. And to feel like I had helped give this fan base and this community, did my part, not perfectly, but as best I could, to get some more of those things. And Joe said it when he got hired, or not hired. Joe didn't get hired when he bought the team. They were going to have more of those, and I remember looking at that, thinking, how the Warriors aren't very, how are you going to do that? And boy, did he do it. And it's crazy to see those 4 new ones up there and where the organization has come. But I'm so thankful. I wish, part of me wishes I could have been a fan during it all. I might have enjoyed it more, and I hate saying that, but I might have, sitting up there in the upper deck or wherever I was sitting. But wow, the people that I see on the streets, the people I see in the airports, very kind fan base. And we haven't gotten everything right. I did get yelled at a few times about we didn't sign a big man at the buyout. It's not as easy as everyone thinks. We do like big guys, contrary to popular belief. Joe especially likes size, he'll tell you himself. But thank you for your support. Thank you for your passion, understanding that we're human. We try harder than you can even imagine to give you what you deserve. I wake up at 3 in the morning. I've woken up at 3 in the morning way too many times for a job, but as you all may know, it's more than a job, and that's why I love it. That's why it's hard to leave it. Lastly, before I take questions, I want to thank my wife and my daughters for getting on this train with me. It's a fast one, and once you're on it, you're on it. And being there with me in a crazy, kind of awesome way. I tell my daughters, I would have done anything to be in a Warriors parade, and they've gotten to be in 4. Well, one of them has, and one of them I forget, but they've done enough. They've gotten enough success. But thank you for you, and always reminding me that you're when I work, you take care of the kids, and that is I couldn't do my job if you didn't do yours, and that means a lot to me, and it's a lot of sacrifice. I was at dinner last night talking to my family, and I said to my daughters, I said, thank you guys too for being there. And I missed a lot of stuff, but we had some great times, but thank you guys for kind of allowing me to do it and being there. And one of my daughters says, Dad, and I said, I'm thinking, okay, get some feet. She said, Dad, you pass the ketchup? So kids are fine, family's good. They're worried about their own situations, but I'm sure they'll miss it as they all will as we move through it. So, lastly, to everybody here, when I started, I think it was this guy over here in the red and white hat, Marcus, and Rusty. I don't know if Steinmetz was in the mix at that time. He might have been moved on, but it wasn't this. And it's been fun watching it become this. This is what you want. And it wasn't an internet, and it wasn't social media. It was, I guess, the Chronicle and the Contra Costa Times. Simpler, but thank you for all of you. You covered me fairly. You cover us fairly. Getting to know some of you. I like all of you. You have hard jobs too. I have no idea how hard, but I know it's hard. And hopefully, I think Raymond's about as good as they come. And hopefully he's been a good partner for you as much as I think he has. This team, and then I'm going to take questions. This team is in great shape. It's in great shape. Joe's not going anywhere. He has supported me. He has given me. If there was a metric on cost per win, I don't know how good I'd be, because we've spent a lot of money because he's so competitive, because he cares so much, and to have an owner like that puts his heart and his will and his money into winning, you cannot ask for anything more, and that's not changing. Got a fantastic coach. You've got arguably one of the best players to ever play and one of the best people to ever play in Steph Curry. So the future's unbelievably bright. I know that some people have said I'm leaving because there's a lot of big decisions. Well, it's been a lot worse than this. There's been a lot harder summers than this when we started and in the past. So I have great confidence in what's to come and have no doubt that much success will still be forthcoming. So sorry I went all over the place, but that's it. I'll answer any questions you have.
Hey, Bob. It's so clear that this is a heartfelt decision, and when you describe the job that requires complete engagement, could you share a little bit of the timeline about when you first started considering a departure? When did those feelings get really real? And would you describe this as a family decision?
Well, every decision is a family decision, but I know it's been my wife's. If I stayed, she support me. My family would support me. 2019, we've been in the finals 5 years in a row. That's a lot. It's exactly what you want. It's exactly what you do it for. And I had to figure out then what was left. Finals take a lot out of you. Some of you that covered us for the finals. So for 4 years ago, I thought, can I keep doing this? And how can I keep doing it? Talked to Joe. He said, what do you need? We brought Mike in. I've got a tremendous amount. It's only because of the help I've had over the last 4 years. But you think about it. I've thought about it, Kareth. But really, I wanted to go through this season, just focus on the season. And then when the season ended, I started thinking, do I have what is required to do it the way I know it needs to be done? And it's a personal thing, right? And so for me, it was just, it's hard because it's so public. I don't love it that it's so public, but I get why it is. I would just wish you could leave a job like most people. And your reasons are your reasons. But I started thinking about it when the season ended, and had thoughts prior, but really when the season ended. And well, people can do it however they want. I have great respect for every GM in any sport. They do it however they want. I know how I have to do it, and if I can't do it that way, I can't do it.
Bob, I know how hard this is for you, but what's the hardest part of coming to this decision, knowing how close you are to the guys and everything?
Monty, the hardest part is I love the people at my work, you know, and I won't get to see them as much. And I won't get to help them as much as I can. That's a tough thing, but I also know that they deserve the parts of me that I got to be able to give, but it'll be the people. I guess I'm probably semi-addicted to the competitiveness, maybe more than I think. This is an intoxicating thing. I will probably have a hard time with it. Games become part of your life. You coming to games, road games are on TV, you feel it, you wake up in the morning. The competitiveness, there's nothing like it. It's just high stakes. So I'll miss that, because you can't really find, that's a hard thing to find. It's a tough thing to live in, but there's an awesomeness to the competition at the highest level, and to compete in the finals and do all those things. I'll miss watching games. I'll miss going to games. I love basketball. I love it. It's my first love. Being this close, watching Curry warm up, being with Steve, being with my group, battling it out with Joe on the right, wrong thing. Those are just, it's a constant thing, and I don't know how I'm going to do. But there's a lot of things I'm going to miss, and I'm sure I'll find those things out as time passes.
You mentioned, that the organization's in great shape. You mentioned Joe, Steve, Steph. You do leave a void, obviously. How do you expect that to be filled? Obviously, you have a stable of people under you. Just what type of shape do you think the front office generally is in?
I think it's in fantastic shape. I mean, I get more credit than I deserve. There's people that work with me that deserve more credit and are going to get a chance to do more. They've already done more than people probably know. That's the great thing about this, in that it's a team. It's not me that does all these things by myself. It's my group, and they're tremendous, and they deserve more attention and credit than they've ever gotten. Joe will probably answer the next thing, and also whatever that is will be with my full support. I end on June 30th. I'll help out whenever way makes sense for everybody. But like I said, Joe, he's sitting right here. I wouldn't have hired me 12 years ago. Why would he hire me? I was an agent. He bought this big purchase. He could have hired probably anybody, and he hired me. So he's good at this. He got Rick Welts, brought in Jerry, Steve. This franchise it's one of the best franchises in the world, and it's his. So whatever decision he wants to go with will be a good one. It'll be a good one, but I'm sure you can ask him. He'll address it.
Hey Bob, you talked about Steph, Draymond, Klay Thompson, guys that you've been attached to as much as anyone in this organization. What was it like telling them that you were going to leave, and what was that conversation like, and how did that feel for you?
It's hard. Those guys are, you think about what you go through with people, and it's not all great. Most of it's been unbelievable, but I guess, Logan, on those things, it's easier because I think I'll still talk to those guys. I mean, I want to. I think those relationships are real. So it's not goodbye, but it's more like, you guys, they're going to keep going. This is just my stop. The train is powerful. This thing's moving, but it's just, I got to get off. It's hard, but it's funny. I was talking to Steph a little bit, and I go, I feel like you're not really trying to change my mind. He started laughing. He goes, no, it hurts. He says, but he understands. The people that know me understand. But you can't take away what we've done and what we've been through. And my hope is that those relationships last a long, long time. If they don't, it's too bad. I screwed something up. Because what's the point of 12 years if you walk away and you don't have those? I don't understand that. So I think they're good. But it's always tough. The people that have been here, not that the people haven't been here a short amount of time, it's hard too, but there's some people like those guys, that's a long time to work with someone and to accomplish what we did. So it's a bittersweet one.
Bob, you mentioned bringing Dunleavy in that year. Was there some conscious effort on your thinking that you were kind of preparing him to replace you, that he was a guy who could replace you? And I know it's Joe's and Peter's decision. Is he ready to replace you?
Well, Mike's great. He's as good a GM as if he wants it, he'll be great if that's what he wants. But it's his call, it's Joe's call, it's not my call, but he'll be, if that's what he wants to do, he'll be great. He knows more about basketball than I do. He's grew up in it, he was born into it with his dad, he played in it. If that's his calling, and that wasn't my thought at the time, honestly. I just thought we're always looking for people that'll make us better. Joe's always about bringing in talent. I didn't have an idea at the time that I was grooming him. I mean, he's more my friend than coworker, but he's really good, and he would be fantastic if that's the choice. But I'd be lying if I thought 4 years ago, let's bring in Mike and he can assume this thing. If I told him if that's what he wants, then I'm all fully supportive. I said I'll help with Draymond. He needs it. But yeah, just, you know what, I look at things like that, Tim, as who's part of the solution, and he's part of the solution in whatever role that is. If he stays in the role he's in, great. If he wants to do more and that's what the decision is, it'll be great.
Bob, a couple weeks ago at the season ender, Steve talked about just kind of the difficulties of this year in particular, and the lack of chemistry and the lack of trust issues that started obviously in October. I'm just wondering, you said you took a long time to think about this, but did this season in particular take a added emotional toll on you?
Yeah, well, yes, but that's not why I'm leaving. This was a hard year. I don't know, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. There has been hard years though, and there's been tough ones. Even when we were winning those years with Durant and those teams that just, there was no outcome that was acceptable except winning. I think we were favored in every game we played. It's just great, but pressure. This year, I don't know, it's hard to repeat, and there were some tough things this year. I'm not going to discount those, but some people asked me, if the team wins the championship, would you leave? I think yes. So if this was a perfect year, it might have still been the time. I don't know, but they all come with their own challenges. There's one happy GM at the end of the year. It's a hard one. One happy coach, one happy team. Luckily, we got to be happy 4 times.
Hey, Bob, first off, congratulations on a great run. Aside from spending more time with your family, of course, do you know what's next for you? Do you know how you'll spend most of your time? Any projects on your mind? Just be a regular basketball fan? What does the next year or so look for you?
Well, my wife said we're going to get a drink, maybe on the way home. Nenea, who's awesome, who helped me over the last, I think Nenea became famous when she got her ring. She brought in gave me a little glass of champagne an hour or so ago. I don't need to know that. I don't know that answer, and I guess I don't need to know that answer. I'm in a narrow lane, because I love basketball so much. But I don't know. I've never really stopped going. I went right from an agent to this. I went to law school at night after college. My whole life it's been like, maybe it'll be good for me to sit still. I don't know how good I'll be at it, but I've actually never done it, and maybe figure some things out. And I don't know what's coming.
We're gonna do two more, and then Bill's gonna join Bob.
Bob, hey, Bob. Jason kind of touched on what I was going to ask you, but some of the activities you mentioned that you've missed with your girls. What are some of those? And might you become a youth coach or anything? Or are they having, I don't know, piano recitals or things that you're going to do to maybe fill some of that void?
Yeah, look, I make a lot of things, Janie. I try. I think what'll be different is sometimes it's not about showing up. It's about being present. So I can physically be there. I'm physically there as much as I can be, as much as any GM can be. But there's a mental part, like when our games are going on, you're thinking about that. I tried to be my oldest daughter's kindergarten basketball coach. It did not work well. It's going to be tough for me because I love my family, but it's very hard to move out of this kind of hyper-competitive world. But I don't know. I mean, I think I'll sit with that and see. And I love my kids. I love my wife. That's never going to change. But I don't think I'm done working. I'm going to do something. But they're great. I'm lucky. I'm lucky with the 3 daughters keep me sane. I got enough men, boys in my life around here, so it balances itself out.
Bob, my apologies for more of a straight basketball question, but beyond the 4 championships, obviously one thing you'll be remembered for, one big thing you guys embarked on was the 2 timelines and trying to sort of develop the next core. How do you sort of reflect on that? I mean, it's a difficult thing to do or to try, and as you leave, where do you think that, how did that work? Where do you think that stands?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we said that, but I see the narrative. We, myself, Joe, us, all of us, we're just trying to put together the best team we can every year, and we got it right last year. I guess if you don't win, you don't get it right. So then you go back to the drawing board and see what you did right, what you did wrong. The effort of this organization is first class. The desire to win is pure, but the beauty of and what makes this job so fun, Ron, is you get to try again. You lose in the second round, and you say, well, that wasn't good enough. So what are we going to do? I don't know that we put a timeline on. When we have talked, it's not about let's focus on the second timeline here, or this is a first timeline thing. It's trying to win championships. An owner doesn't spend $360 million if he's worried about the next thing. An owner spends that, he wants to win a championship. And trust me, that's all Joe wants to do. And I know it's been, one last thing before he comes up, this wasn't about money. Just want to make that clear. It's not about money. I make plenty of money. I got offered plenty of money. So, thank you for that. I know you're going to come up here now.
You have to stay, Bob, a little bit longer. Hey, everyone. Well, I have to admit that when first considered buying a team, I thought about a lot of things, but I never thought about a day when I'd have to say goodbye to a partner and a friend and someone who's so close to our organization and me. So this is a first, and there's no script for this. So Raymond, no, in all seriousness, first of all, I want to thank Bob for 12 years of your life, your family's life. It's been an incredible run. As we all know, we've had historic success, not only as a business, but obviously on the basketball court, and you're a tremendous part of it, a huge part of it. And 4 championships, 6 finals in 12 years. I don't know if you ever never do this again. I think you will in some capacity, but thank you, too competitive. But if you ever do this again, it'd be hard to keep that record going. It's just an incredible accomplishment. And I just want to say on a personal level, I have 4 kids, and I've said this before, I actually consider Bob my 5th. It's really hard to see your son, because that's what I kind of feel like this is. Leave and go off to do something else. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you I understand it, because I don't. It's just not inside. It's not in me to do that. I'm so competitive, and I know he is too. It's a really hard thing for me to understand why, but it's really not for me to understand why. I just want him to be happy. And I will say there's some similarity, and Bob and I have talked about this. You know, I was a little older than you, but I've been at the venture capital firm, a firm, very good firm, for 25 years. And some people would say one of the greatest jobs in the world. Why would you ever leave to do anything else? We had amazing success. And I couldn't really explain that to people other than to say that it's just there was something else I wanted to do. In my case, I knew what it was. Maybe Bob does, maybe he doesn't, I don't know. But I dropped it all, told my partners I was leaving. It was a very hard thing to do, to go try something different and something new. And maybe that's what's in your future. I can't say, I don't know. But I wish him the best of luck. And I know he'll be successful at whatever he does. And I can guarantee you that he will not sit for long. I don't think it's in his nature. He has been an incredible partner over the period, not only the success we've had, but what you guys don't see, what you don't know, is the amount of stress, the amount of pain, the amount of tension, there's just so many things that happen if you're all together, and as we have been, and trying to build something which, you know, from where we were to where we are now, I think we can take great pride in, you can take great pride in. And I can think back just of some of when I think about Bob, I think about a couple of things. One, I think about the first day I met him. He was suggested to me by Danny Ainge, who gets a call out here today. I was looking for a GM and interviewed a bunch of people that the league recommended. And just nobody was clicking exactly right. And Danny called me one day, who I knew from my Boston days, and said, you know, there's this guy, Bob Myers. He's young. He hasn't ever done any of this before. He's described who he was. I said, well, he doesn't sound like he's qualified. And that's the truth. And I said, well, you ought to just meet him. So I said, well, okay, well, I'm going to interview a bunch of other people, but I'll meet him. And it was back in January of 2000, maybe 11. We had just taken over the team, and I think in January we met. Came out, we met. I said, I really, really liked him. I said, this guy, you know, characteristically, capability-wise, I think he could be really good at this, but wasn't necessarily the resume. Interviewed a bunch of people for a few more months, and ultimately I said to myself and Peter, and said, you know, I don't really like any of these other candidates. I really like this guy, Bob Myers. And, you know, we called him back, and the rest is history. It's a pretty amazing story. So that's one thing I think about. Another thing I think about, which was an incredible thing, is when we were doing the Andre Iguodala acquisition, it was so hard because we had, as I recall, and I don't remember all the details now, we had to shed a bunch of money, and it was hard to be able to bring him on. And I remember I was on vacation, or I call it vacation, but up in Montana, and I was on with Bob all the time, like all day, all night, just constantly. How are we going to get this done? He worked so hard to get that deal. People could never understand how difficult that was. It didn't seem like a lot, right? But just to get that guy, turned out to be a very important person in the history of this franchise and the success we've had. So he's an incredibly diligent and hard worker, which I will always remember and respect. I mean, just insanely so. So I remember that. The next one I remember, the great moment, was Kevin Durant. You know, we lost that horrible series in 2016, up 3-1. It's hard to even think about it or talk about it, to be honest with you. And I won't say a lot other than Bob Myers was on the job pretty fast. And, you know, it all worked out. It would not have happened. We would not have had those next 2 championships if Bob hadn't done what he did and working incredibly difficult. He was the key guy. It was his idea and his execution. And yes, a lot of other people had a lot to do with it in the organization. It's always a we thing. But it wouldn't have happened without Bob. And so we owe him that. That was something I think about as well. And I guess I also think about, you know, the 2019, more heartbreak. You know, how difficult that was to see 2 of our greatest players in consecutive games go down. And how Bob dealt with that and the humanity with which he approached it. It's just incredible. I can't even describe to you or try to put it into words, but it's just so vivid for me, you know, in terms of remembering it. So, and I could go on and on and on. You know, the things that weren't done, the trades that weren't done, which were an incredible amount of time and diligence and effort and so on. I just think we have a great organization, and it was Bob was a central part of it over the last 12 years. We're going to miss him incredibly, and I wish him the success, all the success in the world, and whatever he decides to do. And who knows, maybe he'll be back with us at some point in the future. I'm not going to give up that easily. He may think so, but I'm not. You know, I've always said that success is, you know, yeah, you have to have talent, but you have to have the management involved in these organizations on the business side, on the basketball side. Management makes a huge difference, and none of you can understand that as much as when you're doing this and involved in it. And Bob has just been as good as it gets or ever will be. So thank you for all those efforts. You know, I'll just quickly address.
This is more compliments than I ever got.
Yeah, well, you know, got to keep you working on the next thing, Bob. What's next? We have, Bob addressed it, and I think he addressed it well, and I'm sure you'll ask a couple of questions, but look, we have a great organization. We believe in bench strength. Some may think we don't, based on, they criticized our bench on the court sometimes, but we do believe in bench strength, and within this organization, we have a lot of bench strength, and we have a lot of people that are really good at their jobs, and that we're constantly training for situations like this. You can't always achieve it, but Bob has trained some great people in his organization, and I think they'll play a great role going forward. I'm not going to say what we're doing yet because I don't know what we're doing yet. I only learned of this decision this morning, and while we've been thinking about the possibility of it happening, certainly knew it was a possibility, although I didn't want to admit that that was really a possibility to myself. It was a possibility, and so we've thought about it, but it's not going to be something that we, you know, rush into. We'll get it done when we get it done. We'll make the right decision for the organization and hopefully move forward. I think we're preparing for the draft, free agency, all those things. And I know I'm going to work him to every last day till June 30th to be involved here, whether he knows it or not. So he'll be here for that. And
That's fine, yeah.
yeah, that's the way it's going to be. So I think we'll be prepared, and we'll go forward, and it'll be good. Anything else you want to say before I can take some questions too? But
No, I that means you drive a hard bargain, so it was nice to hear those things. I do share those sentiments, and I guess I skipped over a lot of the things I'm proud of. There's a lot of things to be proud of. It's a hard job. It's hard to win. Somebody's going to win a championship in 2 weeks. It's not us, but we know what it feels like to win the championship and lose one. So proud. Well, I should have hit on that, but I'm proud of what I did, and I'm proud of what we did. But thank you for those things. It was really nice.
all right, some questions. I'm glad to take any questions.
You mentioned that management can make a world of difference. How do you think Bob's decision of leaving might impact, other guys making decisions, including Steve, who only has 1 year left on his contract.
They're coming right for you.
That's okay. Look, I think Bob is, we've all, one thing that's great about this organization, and all organizations that achieve greatness, is that they have great continuity. You look at Miami, who's in the finals last night, great continuity over many years. Same thing with this organization. We have 3 players that have been here, other than Udonis Haslem, I think the 3 longest tenured players in the league. Bob, 12 years, maybe the longest tenured GM ever in the Warriors? Is that true, Raymond? Yeah, we're tied. Steve Kerr's been here 9 years. We're all about continuity. We've been working together a long time. I mean, we kind of know how each of us think. I think it's going to be hard to adjust to know Bob, but we'll figure out a way to do it. And I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, the new CBA has a lot of restrictive rules that may not be directly aimed at you guys, but will impact you guys pretty heavily. How do you view that changing or not changing your future plans on the roster?
I'm not going to comment on the roster because very much, because the truth is we have a lot of work to do, obviously, and we have time. We have until the draft and free agency, which is a month away or so. So we're going to win no matter what. I don't care what the rules are. We are going to figure out a way to do it. That's what good organizations do. They figure out a way to win the game. And our game is to win games and to win championships. And when we came here, this ownership group 13 years ago, we made a ridiculous proclamation about winning within 5 years, and of course somehow we managed to do it, all of us, players and everybody involved, and we've continued to win, and look, the rules will change in the game, but we'll continue to do that. We're going to work really hard to do it, and I think we have really smart people, and we'll do it.
As you consider a new GM and the culture fit and all those types of things, what should the new person know about your involvement with the team day to day, your enthusiasm for basketball, and what it's like to work with you?
I guess they can go talk to Bob and see what that's like. I think there are a lot of misconceptions. I'm involved as an owner, and Peter's involved, but I think you should be involved if you want to be successful. I think this idea that somehow you should stay out of the way is ridiculous. No good business runs that way. Whoever's in charge is involved, and they know what's going on. Now, you hire great people, like this guy, and you let them make the calls, and you don't get in their way. You let them do their job. So that's a basic tenet of what we do. But as long as I'm involved in ownership, I'm going to be involved in the organization. Sometimes there are ultimate calls that have to be made, and the buck stops here, as they say, so you have to do that. But I haven't really had to do that very much, because I've had great people like Bob Myers and Brandon Schneider and Rick Welts before that, Steve Kerr, and these guys know what they're doing, and they're great. They've been great at their jobs.
Joe, you just talked about continuity, but this is going to be the first draft that you've had under your tenure where you don't have a long-term GM in place. How do you approach the draft under those circumstances, and when do you think that you're going to make a decision on who is going to replace him? I'm not gonna box myself in here, to be honest and open about this. We really just learned about this when you learned about it this morning. I was always hopeful that Bob would continue on, that somehow he was joking, but he wasn't. So, obviously I've thought about it. We've got some ideas. We'll make a decision as soon as we can, but I want to make sure that we make the right decision. And, if it happens in a week, great. If it happens in a month, great. We'll make that decision through a natural course, have the right process. I think we're preparing for the draft and free agency and all those things regardless, and we'll be ready.
Hey, Joe, not to box you in any further, but do you think Bob's replacement will almost certainly be internal, or will there be any outside candidates on the
I'm not going to comment on that at this time. I will say that we do have a very strong organization, and I think that there's a good possibility it could be an internal candidate, but haven't made a decision, so I can't really give you an answer. We're going to work on that.
Joe, a couple quick questions. Is Bob running the draft then?
Tim, I wasn't very good at that anyway, so.
I don't think we've even gotten to that level of what's going to happen exactly in the next month. I guess he's employed theoretically till June 30th, so the draft falls within there. But we don't support role. Okay.
And also, he's sitting right in front of me, but I'm going to ask you: is your son Kirk a candidate to become the general manager?
I'm not going to comment on who's candidate, who's not a candidate at this point. I'm going to keep you all guessing, particularly you, Tim.
Joe, you've been with Bob all this time, and you guys have developed a really close relationship. What are the things you're going to miss about him, irrespective of basketball, just his companionship and his friendship?
I'll tell you, I'm going to miss talking to him 5 to 20 times a day. There are times during the course of the year where we don't, but most of the time it's a constant dialogue. I'm going to miss that. Probably the thing I'm going to miss the most is that, because Bob is such a great person, so smart, and I don't mean to keep giving you more accolades here today, but might as well. That's going to be hard. We've all worked together for a long time, and I mean, that's going to be a very difficult thing to adjust to. But life goes on, and nothing is forever. We all know that. Owners don't own teams forever. Players don't play forever. We'd like to think they do. New players come along and get better, and all of a sudden they emerge. Maybe Bob has something else great in his future that he wants to do. These things do change, and as much as we'd like them to last forever, they just don't.
Joe, you just talked about things not lasting forever. How much pressure is there organizationally to get as much done you can while you have Stephen Curry, Clay, and Dre on this roster?
It doesn't matter if they're here or they're not here. There's a lot of pressure. Our job is to win championships, period. And I'm going to expect that. We're going to expect that this year, next year, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. That's just, there's no point in doing this if you're not trying to win the championship. No point.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Good afternoon. Once again, you have been listening to a press conference with Bob Myers, the GM of the Warriors, who announced today he's stepping down from his position after 12 years. You also heard from the Warriors owner, Joe Lacob, there talking about some of his memories with Bob Myers and some of his accomplishments. So just some of the highlights from today. We heard Bob Myers saying it's just time. He can't give it everything like he has for the last 12 years. He was reminiscing about his time with the Warriors, of course, all the big wins. He had a lot to say about Steph Curry, Draymond Green, among others that he's worked with over the years. Also talking about growing up a fan, a Warriors fan, and thinking back to the times that he used to go and watch the Warriors play. We heard a little bit more about, what he's going to do with his time away and with the time that he's going to have not being the GM. And you heard him thank his wife and talk about his daughters and saying he'll be more present for them and all the activities that they have going on. We also heard from him talk about, what he's going to miss and that was kind of interesting, saying, you know, he loves the people that he works with, and he definitely will miss that, and of course the competition in this highly competitive industry. So a lot there that he went over, almost a 1 hour long press conference. We have our sports anchor Chris Alvarez is there, and we're hopefully gonna get a phone call here from him shortly so he can give us some of his thoughts and perspective of what we learned today with this big announcement. And again, one of the other takeaways was from Joe Lacob, the owner, again talking about memories with Bob, but also the question that he got, who's he considering to fill that role, right? Who's gonna fill that GM spot? And he said he didn't want to answer those questions and really didn't want to speak of that. Somebody even asked, you know, is his son Kirk a candidate for the GM position? And again, he had that same comment that he just wanted to wait it out, keep us guessing, and hopefully we'll learn more soon. I'm going to play a video of Bob from years past. So there you see him at the Warriors parade, one of several for him. And you can see, you know, him there doing his job on the court. And if you stand by here, I'm going to go ahead and put Chris Alvarez on speakerphone, who was in that press conference today, our sports anchor. Chris, thank you for calling, and thanks for weighing in on what you heard today. I'm going to go ahead and put you on speakerphone so our viewers can hear what you have to say. I kind of just went over some of the highlights that I thought stood out to me from the press conference, from both Bob and from Joe Lacob. Let's start with what Bob Myers had to say. What stood out to you? What were some of the big takeaways for fans?
I think, as we stream this live, I mean, if you were watching the press conference and as I was taking notes, it's just, I think a lot of it, not even what he had to say as much as the emotion behind it. And you see Bob, he's always over the years been one of those guys that there's not many people like him in all of sports that really wear their emotions on their sleeves. And you could see how emotional he got kind of talking. I mean, I think his first opening statement before he took a question from the media was about 10 to 11 minutes. And he went through what seemed like his whole entire 12 years of what has happened here. And the one point I think that really stuck out to me when he got emotional and talked about, you know, growing up a Warriors fan and being a fan on the upper deck and then helping bring these teams, you know, 4 titles in his time here, and kind of that transition of his life going from a fan in the upper deck at Oracle to being a key contributor and cog to what this dynasty has become. So that stood out to me, and you can just tell that the job and the tension and the stress has weighed on him, and it was just time for him to get out. He talked a lot about his family and being more around them, and so he mentioned if he can't do it his way and the 100% way, he was going to be able to do it. It's not fair to the Warriors, the organization, the players, the coaches. And so for him, as we got the alert this morning from ESPN, the quote was, "It's time," and for Bob, it's time.
And, you know, towards the end of that press conference, we heard from the Warriors owner, Joe Lacob, talking about some of, you know, his memories of first hiring Bob, which was interesting, you know, saying he didn't have much experience, but he hired him anyways. But then also, you know, we didn't get many details about what's going to happen moving forward, who's going to take over as GM.
Yeah, and that was kind of to be expected, that Joe is not going to tell us what he thinks. I mean, he did say today that he kind of thought all along that maybe Bob was joking or wasn't going to step down, and today he kind of learned along the same lines that as we did, that officially that Bob is moving on. So he has a lot to think about, and I'm sure, you know, they've known that this is something that's potentially been available and what they might have to do as an organization. And it's an interesting time in the year with the draft coming up, free agency, but Joe did say that they're not going to rush into this. They're going to make the right decision. There are some internal candidates, as we're kind of referenced with Mike Dunleavy, potentially his son, Kirk. There's going to be a lot of interest in this job when you have Steph, Clay, and Draymond and the success they've built. This is a job that's going to attract all kinds of people. And so the Warriors if there's anything that we've learned under the ownership of Joe Lacob, he's willing to take risks, he's willing to make good decisions, and he has, because you referenced that story about choosing Bob Myers, who was an agent and had no experience as a GM, and there was something in his gut that told him it was the right decision, and he ended up being absolutely right. So interesting time for the Warriors as they kind of go into this next transition phase, and it's going to be interesting this summer to see what they do. But as I mentioned, with the timeline of where we are in the NBA season and with the draft and free agency coming up and some of the questions the Warriors need to answer on the roster, you'd think that decision would be made fairly soon, but the Warriors aren't going to rush into it because they want to make the right decision.
All right. Chris Alvarez, thank you so much for calling in, giving us your recap of today's big press conference for the Warriors as we find out that GM Bob Myers is leaving his position again after 12 successful years, a lot of wins for the Warriors. All right, Chris Alvarez, I know you're going to be reporting on this later today, so we'll tune in. Thanks so much for your time once again.
Thanks.
And again, you were listening to our sports anchor, Chris Alvarez, there giving us a recap and some of the highlights from that press conference today of that big announcement that GM Bob Myers is stepping down after 12 years. We're going to have much more on this for you later on in our newscast. You can tune in to our next show, which is at 3 p.m., Getting Answers, 4, 5, and 6 this evening. And on our streaming show at 5:30, we'll have sports director Larry Beal on to weigh in, and he's been covering the Warriors for many years, so I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about this big announcement. So make sure you tune in for that. That is streaming only at 5:30. Thanks for watching. We're going to take you back to regular programming, and we'll see you back here later today.